Welcome back. Here it is, everyone. My Bob Dylan tier list ranking of all 40 studio albums by Bob Dylan. This has been in the works for a long time. A lot of listening, a lot of years. Maybe in a couple years down the road, I'll create a new one of these because I'm sure my ideas of where I rank the albums will be different. But obviously, some of these albums have been with me for a long time. Some of them I've only heard this year. But this is my definite ranking as of 2025 of all. I'm doing a tier list. Everything is going to be awesome. I'm going to be talking about each volume. Feel free to skip around. We're going through 6 decades here, so strap in, put your seatbelt on, get your popcorn ready, and here we go. Bob Dylan, 1962, the debut. Now, there's a few original compositions here besides "Song to Woody" and what was the other one? I don't know. And mostly traditional music here. Most traditional covers. A lot of this thing is him groaning and strumming super loud, and I guess that works for some of the songs, but definitely not all of them. The harmonica on this album is also extremely piercing. Trust me, I like that on a lot of his albums, but this one it's like kind of like too much. I really enjoy the cover of "House of the Rising Sun." That is just phenomenal. I feel like that jagged voice is perfect for that song, as well as "Baby, Let Me Follow You Down." That's just a classic song, him playing at that Royal Albert Hall. That's just amazing. "Song to Woody" is also another highlight. That's a lot of the songs. I feel like the loud, fast strumming and the rugged performance only has a limited appeal, and I wouldn't listen to most of these songs on their own unless I was listening to this album start to finish. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a great collection of folk music. I just feel like if you're just starting with his discography, I probably wouldn't recommend this one unless you're like intentionally going chronologically. I think it's a sweet debut to his music, but I think that's exactly what it was. It was a debut to his music. It wasn't meant to be like some crazy, mind-blowing album or anything like that. It was thrown together as a way to demonstrate his skills at the time. Then it certainly does that. But looking back with everything else that he's created, it's hard to hold it up on a pedestal when there's so much more to appreciate in his discography. It's nice to see where Bob Dylan began in his humble beginnings, but I'm afraid this one, I don't really enjoy that one that much. I don't know if it's the loud strumming or the groaning. There's a lot of groaning in this album. People praise it a lot. I don't know. C tier. For me, this is C tier. This is prime. I just spit. I'm sorry. This is prime C tier material. Moving on to Freewheeling. A lot of Dylan's albums I find mix phenomenal, legendary, classic compositions with incredibly mid songs. What I mean by this is this album probably has the most amount of well-known quote classics. It's got "Blown in the Wind." It's got "Masters of War." It's got "Hard Rain." It's got "Don't Think Twice." Right. Then it's got like 5 or 6 songs thrown in there, like "Down the Highway" or "Oxford Town," which are probably the definition of just okay. And when they're placed right next to literally iconic compositions, they just sort of fall flat. Now, I recognize that every song can't be good, and the albums have highs and lows, and the gap is so noticeable that between these tracks, it just bogs down the experience of listening to this album start to finish. Now, that being said, for instance, my favorites off of this, "Hard Rain" and "Don't Think Twice, It's Alright," for instance, are almost mythical in their reputation and their strength to stand the test of time. They've stood the test of time. They're still being played today. They're amazing. "Masters of War" is actually insane of how angry and pissed off it is. It's almost impassively. He's just kind of chilling. He's just saying like, "ah," and he somehow sounds like old and weathered, yet he's a 22-year-old or something. It makes you want to listen to him because he sounds like he has experience. He's got this old weathered voice, but he's just a kid. I simply cannot disrespect this album because of these classics that it holds, despite my annoyance that this track list isn't more balanced. The writing on "Hard Rain" is probably foundational for his genius, in my opinion. This album just demonstrates that he had the ability to write beautiful music that wasn't just traditional covers, and because of that, its historical significance is immense. That being said, I know I'm going to catch some hate for this, but this is not an S tier pick. I say low A tier because I like what comes after a lot better, but I still have to respect this because of the classics. This is going to be easy low A tier. Going into 1964, Times They Are Changing is probably his most political album, in my opinion, whether you meant it that way or not. You can see he recorded it right after JFK's death in 63. No. yeah, I don't know, sometimes in 63, like before or after he died, like in there, and then it got released in the January of 1964, and it blew people's minds because it hit them right in this emotional spot after the death of a president and the mourning of a nation. The title track is basically insane that he sang this to older generations at that time. For instance, come mothers and fathers throughout the land, don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Yeah. It's just bold, it's gutsy. That's the way to explain what happened. Other songs are also political, like Only a Pawn in Their Game, depicting the assassination of Medgar Evers, a civil rights activist. Probably the most underrated and one of my favorites is The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll. The Rolling Thunder Revue version of this is also amazing. It's about a corrupt justice system, a true story that I won't dissect, as there's other videos on YouTube that explore the meaning behind it, but eloquently, it's so angry, and the point about a terribly racially motivated murder is the story that it explains, and it's just very, very, very well written. Other songs like One Too Many Mornings and Boots of Spanish Leather are arguably super important in his discography and to come, and they feel tender yet sad. Their writing is superb. However, I don't see myself coming back to this too often. It's got a certain mood to it that I'm only in for rarely. The mood to it is just kind of dreary, and now I understand the historical importance, as in Freewheeling, for example, but it almost seems like the songs have much more room to evolve in the lifespan of his career. But maybe that's just because I'm looking back on it, and obviously back in 1964, I couldn't really see where the trajectory of these songs were to go to. But at the time, though, the American people, for this album, definitely cemented him as that protest singer that he tried to escape the label of. When the Ship Comes In is also an instant classic. I love that song. It's very underrated. I'd give this B tier. There are no bad songs in it, really. It's just my enjoyment of it doesn't warrant too much re-listenability from start to finish, and it's definitely got highlights, though. Definitely got highlights. I would say this is a B tier album. Now, of course, we got another side of Bob Dylan from 1964. Here we got a tender, more personal portrait of Dylan. It's arguably a lot more emotional, and his voice reflects this. It's still sharp as usual, but I feel like it's noticeably less harsh and nasal. He's more expressive, I feel like. Chimes of Freedom is sort of like a half-remembered hazy dream told in the voice of a deity and the words of a poet. It's a little repetitive, I would say, but I don't really mind the 7-minute runtime of that song because it's exquisite, and it's almost hypnotic is what I'm going to say. That's the word I was looking for. Through the mad mystic hammering of the wild ripping hail, the sky cracked its poems in naked wonder. Like that is just insane. Now, Motorcycle Psycho Nightmare is a little bit weird, not gonna lie. All I Want to Do and To Ramona are just extremely underrated, and if I'm honest, whenever I revisit this album, it's like I forget how good it is. Sure, some of the songs are well-known classics. Now, sure, some of the songs aren't well-known classics like they are on Freewheeling, but they're classics in their own right. Ain't Me Babe is such a complex portrait of a relationship that it leaves me speechless to its complexity and raw emotion. But I was so much older then, but I'm younger than that now. And the poetry and other poetry in the song My Back Pages is screaming with pioneering amazing musicianship. Once again, it's dreamy, hypnotic. Another one I love is I Don't Believe You, She Acts Like We Have Never Met. This one just grows on you over time, and if you hear later renditions that aren't just acoustic, like during The Last Waltz or during the Love and Theft tour, it's so cool to hear. You just hear that guitar riff. It's amazing. Now, this is definitely an A-tier album. It's cohesive and well put together. I don't feel solidly like he had one image in mind when he made it, probably because he recorded it in one night while he was drunk, and I think that given those circumstances, it makes the final product even more impressive because it's so good. You can hear him slurring the words because he's drunk, and it adds to the experience rather than detracting. It makes it more dreamy, I feel like. And my enjoyment, I would place Another Side of Bob Dylan higher than Freewheeling because I feel like the track listing is a little more balanced. I would say this is A tier. Now, Bob Dylan, 1965, Goes Electric, bringing it all back home. Beginning of the Electric Trilogy, and boy, oh boy, does he bring it all back home. With the opening track, Subterranean Homesick Blues, immediately you can see the shift in his music. We've got drums, we've got electric guitar, it's faster paced, the song almost sounds like a rap, you know? Then we're sprinkled with acoustic arrangements throughout this album, mixed with a fiery, powerful wave of a new wave creating music. Now, just look at Maggie's Farm, an absolute classic of a song with an arrangement that just gets better. and better throughout the 6 decades that he played afterwards. And Highway 61 Revisited, if Highway 61 Revisited is the full completion of his transition into electric music, then this one to me seems like the actual transition album. I actually feel like it benefits the album to have the experimental mixed style emanating in its bones. Some of the poetry is just out of this world and feels like he was on drugs while making this. For instance, Bob Dylan's 115th Dream. It's full of crazy characters, full of crazy narrative, and whimsical elements that just keeps going and going, and it's just so enjoyable. Other songs are more simple, like Love Minus Zero, but it's not even a bad thing because we get that tender, emotional side of Dylan's songwriting showing again. I'm not going to lie, it took me a while to get into All Right Ma, I'm Already Bleeding, because it's more of like a poem, an elaborate poem, than an actual song. But ending with It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, it's just iconic. It's the most beautiful, dreamlike thing ever, and I forget how good that song is. Although this is definitely in high A tier, I would put it in S, but I just feel like what comes after is even better. This is a high A tier album. Electric music that pissed a lot of people off. This album's got the classics, the named title track with its famous siren whistle, the woo, whatever you call it, making that little noise in place of a harmonica, really. Simply iconic. Of course, Ballad of a Thin Man, which is probably one of his best songs from this period, in my opinion, is in this album. It's dark, it's dreary, it's captivating in a way that can't be explained. Live versions are also incredible. For example, one that I was lucky enough to hear on the Outlaw tour last year. Just like Tom Thumb's Blues is a softer track, same with Queen Jane Approximately, which is a classic, and they supplement the more jagged, rougher tracks with the more mellow stuff. I wouldn't even call them slow songs. I feel like they're more elaborate poems that feel like you're like floating on your back. Organ playing is of course iconic from Al Cooper, especially on Like a Rolling Stone. Like a Rolling Stone, I've heard so many times it's almost overplayed. It's almost like the other songs in the album better than Like a Rolling Stone because I've just heard that song so many times. I like the bootleg versions and live versions of It Takes a Lot to Laugh, It Takes a Train to Cry better than the original studio version, to be honest. Now, Desolation Row in its 11 minutes is probably the epitome of poetic prose. I think the quality of that ending to the album really ties all these moving parts together. You see, I don't feel like with this album he's trying to say something monumental. I feel like it just feels more largely personal and close, and I feel like it's better than that quote protest music he was doing before because it is that personal. I also like that the songs come together cohesively to one image of Dylan in 1965, creating music that not everyone could understand or appreciate at the time, but that we can now understand, and it's beautiful. This is mid-range S tier for sure. Blonde on Blonde, 1966. Now here we are, that wild, thin Mercury sound. Now let me get this straight, okay? The track listing in this album, having its 14 songs and over an hour, it's not as balanced as some of the other albums, but somehow its imperfection doesn't matter to me. This is because this Dylan album has just been with me for the longest. It has emotional ties to me. It's even though it's not perfect, you know, it's been there through me through the good times, through the bad times. It's always been the soundtrack of just literally about everything, and because of that, it just holds a place in my heart. The back end of this album is just as good as the first end of the album, even though like it's that long of an album. Like Fourth Time Around, which is better than the Beatles' Norwegian Wood. Absolutely Sweet Marie, and those are just straight bangers. You know, everyone just dancing to them. Not really Fourth Time Around, but you know what I mean. Everyone goes crazy over I Want You and Visions of Johanna, but to me, like, some of the other tracks really shine out even more than that. Like One of Us Must Know Sooner or Later is so emotional. Like tracks like that everyone forget about. Opening with Rainy Day Woman is probably the most iconic you could get, and it makes me giddy when I spin it on vinyl because you just know you're about to hear some of the best music ever. Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat is so funny in its lyrics. Same with Stuck Inside a Mobile. Stuck Inside a Mobile is amazing. It's just a constant adventure of crazy characters and crazy mishaps. It's kind of a weird kind of music, but it's catchy all the same. Just Like a Woman is a great composition, poem, and a tender point in the middle of this album, following by the angry Most Likely You'll Go My Way, which I also heard live on the Rough and Rowdy Ways tour. It was awesome. See, I feel like even though some of the quote weaker tracks are here like in the album, like Temporary, like Achilles, I still massively enjoy those tracks. I have a whole video on this channel on the closing track, Sad Ladies of the Lowlands, that you can go check out. But essentially it's the grandest dedication of love from another person to another person that you could ever find in art, and it's actually otherworldly. See, Blonde on Blonde isn't perfect by all means. It didn't make the kind of well-known classics that Highway 61 did, as most of his tracks may be hard to get into for newcomers. His voice is a little nasally and drugged up compared to prior music of the time. time, it was because he was at the peak of his fame, the peak of his burnout, and he was pushed to his absolute limits before the motorcycle crash to produce masterpiece after masterpiece, which takes a massive toll. You can hear it in his voice, the tiredness, yet his constant dedication to making music and art remains. 1975's Blood on the Tracks may be more balanced in this album. Blonde and Blonde's 14 tracks possibly appearing daunting, but this album has helped me through impossibly rough times, and I think it's because of its flexible versatility and commitment to replicating human emotion, human flaws, and pain, and everything that makes us who we are. I don't think people are ready for this kind of music to come out in reality. They weren't ready, and all we can do now is look back in hopeful gratitude and appreciation of this music. This is high S tier for sure. One of the best. Yep, it's almost 2 a.m. over here, and I'm going to be talking about John Wesley Harding. Of course, following Blonde on Blonde was going to be impossible to defeat, and after the motorcycle crash, Bob Dylan went into exile, into the woods of Woodstock. Now, other people say John Wesley Harding immediately has a bad rap because of what it followed, which is just the greatest of the greatest. But I think it's a overall underappreciated treasure trove of gems. Now, I'm not sure if the simplicity in the songwriting was something that was supposed to be his greatest strength or his greatest weakness. Now, prior albums to this had the epic song ballads, folk rock ballads, and this exile almost brought the music down to its roots again, in my opinion. So the songs carry simple instrumental folk arrangements, elementary playing kind of music style, but I don't think it really detracts from the music. A Pop Matters article describes it as having the feel of antiquity settled on it, like decades upon decades of settled dust. And I agree, the songs sound dusty, they sound like they've been sitting on a bookshelf for a long time, they feel like timeless, if that's the word I can use. It almost stands out and stands out his other albums, because they have strong themes of morality, themes of religion. However, it's not really on a preachy level like some of his Christian work, like Saved. It's more just like narrative based, like storytelling. Simple songs, kind of like The Wicked Messenger, they reveal layers upon meaning upon subsequent re-listens. And although the lyrics are somewhat purposeful and complex, the music is anything but. It's simple, but it's direct. I think these songs were created because Dylan was at a crossroads in his life. He's trying to support his family because he has a family now. And songs like I Dreamed I Saw St. Augustine, The Ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest, As I Went Out One Morning, Dear Landlord. A lot of them explore themes of the downtrodden and less fortunate, like Drifter's Escape, or I Pity the Poor Immigrant, or I Am a Lonesome Hobo. I actually have a whole video on this channel where I talk about John Wesley Harding. It's like 30 minutes long, except in that video I talk too quickly so you can't understand what I'm saying, but it is on my channel if you want to watch it. I did a lot of research for that video, so I know a lot about this album. Of course, All Along the Watchtower, that's what everyone's going crazy about. It's probably why he won the Nobel Prize in Literature, because in 130 words, what he's able to do is just astounding. It's mysterious. It's world mind-bending, It's mysterious. I feel like this album tricks us because it starts by having the opening track about a misunderstood, a false telling of a Wild West outlaw, and then it suddenly shows us on this trip of a lifetime across dusty old tales, moral lessons, and all these, it basically subverts our expectations. And I know I'm going to catch some flack for putting this so high on the tier list. I know all of his 60s stuff is just getting up super high, but trust me, we're going to get to the other stuff. It just seems like a simple collection of tunes, but it warms my heart to listen to, and I think it's truly timeless, which is something that not all of his albums are. It seems like I could play this anytime in any decade in the future, and it would still appeal to what I feel and everything going on. And owning this on vinyl also especially boosts my thought process when I'm thinking about this album, because it just feels that much more real. I can hold it in my hands. To me, this is still an example of Dylan's genius, even if he's not crafting these complex ballads, because I don't think songs need to be intricate monster-sized compositions for them to be good songs. This is S tier, low S tier, but this is an S tier. 1969, we got Nashville Skyline. We got his venture into the country genre. We've got his clean-shaven face on the Johnny Cash show. We've got his werewolf-lung fingernails on the cover. In his voice, the complete change of his voice, which is supposed to be through a stopping of him smoking, but I don't really believe. He just changed his voice because he thought he was cool or something. Despite only being 26 minutes long, this album is jam-packed full of banger songs. And everyone's favorite is Lay Lady Lay, but honestly, that's not the best on this album in my humble opinion. I Threw It All Away, for instance, is an absolute classic. I'm sure Dylan threw off so many people with this crazy detour from his prior music, but honestly, it feels natural looking back on it. And I guess I can be coming back to the same point that I feel like it's different if you lived through these decades and you heard him saw him releasing all this music, you're like, what is he doing now? But I'm just looking back on it, so I'm just appreciating it for what it is compared to if it came out in the day. All these songs, Peggy Day, To Be Alone With You, Country Pie, all great songs, very enjoyable. A lot of it feels very romantic too, like for example, Tonight I'll Be Staying Here With You, that song. Another song that the Rolling Thunder does so good, but here he's soft, he's mellow, he's crooning. Nashville Skyline definitely doesn't have the most complex poetic lyrics. No longer it feels hypnotic as the compositions, but his compositions are still simpler, like they are in John Wesley Harding. But I think it holds up as charming and sweet. I think that's the main appeal of this album. It's like charming and sweet. It's a relatively cheerful mood. I would say some of it is a little cliche, if I can even use that word here. But if so, it was clearly intentional. He knew what he was doing to change his style so drastically on purpose, and it worked. His evolution shows. Even songs like One More Night, they're just great. I also have this on vinyl, but the side is scratched a little, which is bad. But I don't care because it sounds okay to me. Owning an album on vinyl always makes me appreciate it a little bit more. And while the songwriting may be a little sparse, some might say that, I enjoy the feeling that this one gives me. It's a cheerful thing, so I'll give it a low A tier, just behind Freewheeling. Now in 1970, if Bob Dylan didn't subvert our expectations enough and try to change what he was doing to escape that protest singer label, this is the epitome of okay, I'm gonna. Those courses of people that say that this was done on purpose to mislead people and get people off his back just by throwing this kind of thrown together kind of album out there that was totally not really good. But and it's possible that was the case, that this was intentionally bad. I know I'm sure all Dylan fans already know this. I'm just repeating myself, but the bootleg series of This Is 10 Times Better, and I've listened to all the bootleg series. I've just listened to certain demos and stuff, and it seems to be that the studio work that overdubs all the production that was going into it just intentionally or maybe accidentally made this album worse. I just start this album and I hear All the Tired Horses and I'm like, what is going on? I mean, some of them are okay. There's some live demos in here. I like the live version of Like a Rolling Stone because he's doing that voice. I also like Wigwam. That's another highlight on this album. I really like Wigwam. It's this do. It's just very peaceful, and it's but other than that, I just don't like this. Oh, I also like Belle Isle. I'm looking at the track list right now. I had prepared so many bad things to say about this album, but then I'm just I like that song. But it's Bob Dylan. So this is still ranks at the bottom. This is an F tier, guys. This is an F tier. I'm just saying that a lot of these traditional covers, some original songs, it just sounds the way they're mixed together in the track list, and it's such a long album. It doesn't need to be this long. Why? I just feel I think Days of 49 is okay. The Alberta songs are okay. It just doesn't strike me as anything particularly fascinating or amazing. And once again, the production that went into it, I feel intentionally or somewhat sabotaged it. Also, we gotta talk about the cover art. The cover art is Dylan can paint now. Why wasn't he painting some of his stuff now to use as the album covers? Instead, he was I think I'm a painter, and he just did this thing. I mean, I'm saying that as someone who can't paint at all. Interludes. There's songs in here that are just there, and I don't get it. Is there something I'm missing here? There's just songs that are just there, and I feel if this is him rejecting this pedestal that he's been put upon, I feel it worked. It got people off his trail. It's because it just threw them off. It's what is Dylan doing now? And I feel that's the most Dylan-esque thing ever. But it doesn't change the fact that this album is just not good. And the fact that he made New Morning so quickly after that, and New Morning isn't such a better of quality, makes me more believe that it was intentional. Man, this is F tier. Goodbye. Goodbye. No more Self-Portrait. I don't like that. Oh, and you know what the most annoying thing is? This is like the only Bob Dylan record that I see in record stores. Like, I'm looking for like, I don't know. It's this and Slow Train Coming are like the most common that I've seen in record stores, whether it be antique stores or actual record stores or flea markets or whatever. It's always Self-Portrait. Like, did they mass produce this thing, or is it because no one wants it? Now, New Morning is just like the happiest Bob Dylan album, 1970, and it came right after Self-Portrait. Like, the mood, a lot of Bob Dylan's song music is just sad. Nothing changed. It's just sad. But this is just like a burst of fresh air. It's just so nice. If not for you, of course, is probably from him working with George Harrison. That George Harrison has his version of the song, but that came from Dylan. Beatles fans, yeah, take that. But this album is just phenomenal. I also have on vinyl Day of the Locust, I Went to See the Gypsy, If Dogs Run Free, of course New Morning with the horn section on Bootleg Session. Yes, oh my god. New Morning with the horn section on the Bootleg series, another Self-Portrait. That is just phenomenal. I like the original too. The Man in Me, of course, Big Lebowski fans will like that one. Timothy Chalamet played Three Angels on SNL, and like no one knew what it was, and it was so funny. Like, all these like people were watching. Oh, what is he gonna play? He's gonna play like a Rolling Stone. And he goes deep cuts and he plays Three Angels, which is great. But anyways, album. It's also kind of weird because if this is such a happy, upbeat album, then why does he just like look at the camera for the cover of him just looking super angrily? Like, if this is gonna be happy, like, why is he looking so angry? But like songs like Sign on the Window, One More Weekend. Once again, some of these are a little bit forgettable, but I feel like I wouldn't like strike up like my Spotify and say, oh, I'm gonna listen to Sign on the Window off of New Morning. It's kind of like I have to listen from start to finish to the album for a lot of these, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because it does have re-listenability. Like, to me, this has more re-listenability than like Times They Are Changing or even like the Freewheeling, because like I can just like spin it and it's just fun. It's uplifting, kind of like Nashville Skyline, and it gets the songwriting isn't like the most complex, but like it still shows that he's got his genius in the 1970s, like early 1970s, and this is beginning his like lower point. I would say the lowest points of his career are like, I don't know, 1972 to 71 and maybe like late 80s. In terms of like his popularity and like how people see him, and this is just proof that he was still a genius, especially with like songs like New Morning's great. I mean, that's the title track, but it's phenomenal. This is a B tier, above Times That Are Changing though. I think there's some distance in between them on the, yeah. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid is kind of hard to rank because it's a soundtrack album. Like, it's not like an album full of compositions. There's really like only 2 or 3 songs, and the rest of it is like music. I actually haven't seen the movie that this is a part of. I want to see it because I've seen some other Bob Dylan movies like Masked and Anonymous and I'm Not There. Those are great ones. But like, this one, he stars in the movie and he made the soundtrack for it, and of course the big thing is Knocking on Heaven's Door. That's why like you see this in the record shops. That's why this is like one of his top listened albums. It's not because people listen to the album, it's because people want to listen to Knocking on Heaven's Door because they like Guns N' Roses, and that's like literally it. But he made it first, basically. And also in the demos for the song, he made Wagon Wheel, the D.R.S. Rucker song. So I didn't know that. I learned that like probably 6 months ago, and I was like, what? Hard for me to rate this album, other than it being F tier, because I don't listen to it. It's just a soundtrack album. I'm not saying that I don't like Knockin' on Heaven's Door. I love Knockin' on Heaven's Door. I'm rating the album, not the song. All these Billy songs, they're just okay. Like, I listened to this like twice, and I was like, okay, I don't think I'm going to listen to this again, and I would not buy this on vinyl either unless I was trying to complete a collection. This one's just a little bit like, I don't know, I don't have that much to say about it, if I'm being honest. It's just like, like, I'm sure I like the Wild West theme, and I like that Dylan was trying to do something new, like his foray into movies, but like from what I've seen, his foray into movies never works. Like, it's never successful. It's just so funny. Some of the themes are enjoyable, like, but it's just not what I would listen to for Dylan music, and maybe I need to see the movie for me to appreciate this soundtrack album, which I have not seen the movie, so I I'm a bit out of the loop, but for me, this is still an F tier. I would say below Self-Portrait, because at least Self-Portrait has like tunes in it, like actual songs. This only has like a couple, so I don't know. Sorry, Dylan. Now we're going to be covering Dylan from 1973, the Self-Titled album. This is another item in Dylan's discography that's a little bit hard to rank because it's not a soundtrack album like the last one, but this album wasn't really arranged or put together by Bob himself. This was the revenge of Columbia Records, basically. So maybe they're frustrated with his lack of output during this time or his departure for Asylum Records, but basically it's outtakes from Self-Portrait and New Morning that they compiled. Yeah, it's entirely covers, traditional covers, and like some more contemporary music, meaning no original content. That means you got like Elvis's Can't Help Falling in Love. We've got Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi. Those are just the ones that come to mind in the greatest recognizability to me. Dylan singing in the songs almost sounds stupidly silly. No, Dylan singing those songs almost sounds stupidly silly. That's a tongue twister. But songs like Lily of the West are actually really good. I like the way that song sounds. It's kind of like a pirate song, kind of like 7 Days. It's had that kind of vibe. You know that song from 1975, the outtake? They totally know what I'm talking about, don't you? But anyways, it's got the air of maritime adventure, a rough and tumble sort of voice, yet tender in its own way. You've got songs with background singers like Sarah Jane that almost seem to mix with the upbeat energy of New Morning with the laid-back, disengaged energy of Self-Portrait. They kind of fuse together so that you got this weird compilation of demos and recordings that just seems unfinished and weirdly mixed. I just feel weird ranking it as an official album because I feel like it was released without Dylan's consent, so there's no artist stamp of approval on it. And I feel like that's a big negative. You know, he's never acknowledged the album. I feel like even though I enjoy a lot of the songs on it, that is kind of like a bad thing about it. The whole mishap of him not putting this album together and just focus on the actual music. It's got a lot of great songs like country, folk, pop mixes, enjoyable covers. Songs like A Fool Such as I, Mary Ann, they're just fun. I was struggling to decide whether this was a C or D tier pick. Most people ignore this album or don't like it, but I think some of this hate is unnecessary. This album is largely forgettable, but I feel reluctant to call it bad. I want to put this in a low C tier behind the other Dylan titled album, and if I change it later, it'll get moved down to D to make room for some other albums, but for now, this is where I'm going to put it. That's a pretty high ranking compared to what most people think of this album. Now, Planet Waves was released in 1974. This is Dylan backed by The Band on their comeback tour in 1974. Then they before that, they record this piece of music together. Basically, the atmosphere is happy at times, but it's thwarted by this dark, bleak undertone. And I'll just cut to the chase. I love Planet Waves because Dylan has known the band for so long at this point. It almost feels natural for them to collaborate on this, and the musicianship, I think, is bolstered by the fact that they know each other's strengths and weaknesses so well. And the band supports Dylan amazingly, even though they're not credited on Spotify for working on this album. Now, Going, Going, Gone is probably one of the most depressing depictions of giving up on life, and it's preceded by a happy song about a romantic night of adventure. It doesn't mix these styles to its detriment, however. I feel like they help it feel otherworldly and ethereal. Tough Mama, Hazel are great. They're just like this just vibe of just kind of like metallic almost. Forever Young fast version is an uplifting song, but the slow version is the same thing, just more emotional. I love the line, "May you build a ladder to the stars, climb in every rung, may you stay forever young." Now, don't get me started on Dirge. I have a video on the song Dirge from this album on this channel. You can check it out. This album, you see, is generally considered the beginning of the divorce era of Bob Dylan from 1974 to 1978, and out of nowhere comes this never performed live mournful funeral rite of a song depicting the end of a relationship. There are so many insane lines here. I hate myself for loving you and the weakness that it showed. You were just a painted face on a trip down suicide road. Excuse me, Sarah Dylan, how would you be feeling if you heard that? I went out on Roller Broadway and I felt that place within, that hollow place where martyrs weep and angels play with sin. Like, Bob Dylan, are you trying to ruin my day? And then finally, there are those who worship loneliness. I'm not one of them. In this age of fiberglass, I'm searching for a gem. That crystal ball up on the wall hasn't shown me nothing yet. I've paid the price of solitude, but at last I'm out of debt. And then it's followed by You Angel You, like nothing happened. It's just the roughest transition ever, yet it somehow works. It's so jarring, but it feels real if it's like a sway of emotions that's going up and down. But once again, the biggest thing that I love about Planet Aves is the mood, that atmosphere, that aesthetic. Every song in here is a little hidden gem that I dare I say echoes that of a masterpiece. It feels rustic. It doesn't feel casual, but it feels direct. It's in a way that gets you in the feels when you're least expecting it. The organ playing, who I assume is Garth Hudson of the band, is superb. And once again, without the band's backup, this really wouldn't be possible or the same. This is A tier for me, which I know is a step up from what a lot of people put on their tier list, if they make them. Cast iron songs and torch ballads, that's what these songs are, a collection of finely crafted tunes. I put this behind Bringing It All Back Home, but above Another Side. Blood on the Tracks. From 1975, this is where I say we got Dylan's most palatable voice for non-Dylan fans, even more so on the bootleg series, More Blood, More Tracks. His voice is probably at its peak for people that are unfamiliar with his work. If you don't know, this was split between two sessions, one in New York and the other one I think in Minnesota. I could totally be wrong. It's some other state. And basically the two versions of the studio version, which is more like upbeat, more cinematic, versus like the down-to-earth kind of like acoustic, they mesh together so well, and because of that balance, it creates like this explosion of just like possibility. His songs feel fresh and exciting, despairing and hopeless, and somehow we experience every single emotion all at once in this 50-minute album. It's insane how we have regret, loneliness, anger, being in love, adventure, betrayal, rejection, sadness, and finally peace and calm at the end. It's like a roller coaster for your senses. There were 4 Blood on the Tracks in the spring of '74. Dylan took some intensive painting classes. It's one of my favorite buried facts because what he learned, he applied to his music in most of all this classic album, portraying some of the most potently powerful songs from his, at the time, current divorce with Sarah. Through painting, he created that spatial understanding, that non-linear narrative style that is shown in so many of the songs in the track listing. You know, it jumps between future, past, present, that kind of thing, and that it feels like a rich tapestry woven together with tears and pain, like joy and laughter and endless devotion. I don't even know where to begin talking about this album. Tangled Up in Blue is a love song, yes, but it feels like so much more than that. Simple Twist of Fate, You're a Big Girl Now, You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go. I cannot overstate how legendary these songs are. It's the intense sorrow that he was under that suddenly produced such vibrant, or at least vivid artwork. Idiot Wind feels like a giant mural free of emotions and characters and swirling sensitivity. It was gravity that pulled us down, and destiny that broke us apart. Absolutely mind-blowing. You'll never know the hurt I suffered, nor the pain I rise above. I'll never know the same about you, your holiness, or your kind of love, and it makes me feel so sorry. His voice just carries such emotion, it's so potent, it's almost intense to hear such feelings. Shelter from the Storm. Wow, I could spend a whole video talking about any of these songs. One weak point, not weak really, but misplaced song to me is Lily Rosemary and the Jack of Hearts. It may be a little misplaced on this album, but it's no doubt a beautiful, beautiful song. If You See Her Say Hello is simply gut-wrenching. To say it's sad is an understatement. As it's gut-wrenching as Buckets the Rain at the end is accepting, calm, refreshing, and though it provides no answers to everything seemingly provoked or asked in this art, it washes the pain away, like flowers blooming after a thunderstorm. I just can't think of this album without thinking about those painting sessions I talked about, because that's a really interesting fact, and because it truly feels like a mural, like a tapestry, a woven quilt of emotion, and that's why it holds up after so long. It goes through every single emotion, it feels like, and because of that, it's an amazing testament to the human condition and the human experience. The age-old question is whether this is better than Blonde and Blonde or not. Blonde and Blonde has been with me for the longest time. Like I said, I think the condensed track list of Blood on the Tracks that's a little bit more concise and directed makes this the better album. Usually it changes for me every month or so which album is better, but right now I'm in the mood that Blood on the Tracks is better. It's going to be high S tier, better than the 1966 classic. I'm sorry guys. Actually I'm not sorry, but I keep apologizing. But yes, Blood on the Tracks. Now we got the Basement tapes from 1975, but they were recorded in 1967 in Big Pink House in Woodstock with the band, and then it was released, like 8 years later or so, if I can do math. But anyways, this is bootlegged at the time for years, so them releasing it was just, it made sense. Some of these songs are sung by the band, not Bob Dylan. You know, you got Rick Danko, Richard Manuel, Levon Helm, and some are by Dylan himself. I'm sure it was a collaborative process, but that's why some don't consider this a Dylan album, because of the reason that it was such like a collaborative process, and like there's songs in here that aren't by Dylan or aren't sung by Dylan, but we're counting it for the purposes of this tier list. Now, created at the same time as John Wesley Harding, a lot of these songs have the same simplicity, the elementary kind of style, plain. They're not necessarily complex of songwriting. Now, once again, I think it's a testament to the fact that these guys were just messing around in a basement, hence the name, hence the title, and somehow these tapes became legendary through bootlegging since they were never released. If anything, this is a Bob Dylan bootleg series volume 0, since the actual series started with 1 and 2 through 3 in 1991. Anyways, some say this is Dylan's quote real voice, because he didn't know he was being recorded a lot of the time, or wasn't recording for an actual studio at the time, and there's like the one time you get to hear that. That's just an interesting idea to think about. It doesn't really add anything to me talking about this album. But Going to Acapulco, Don't You Tell Henry, Ruben Remus, You Ain't Going Nowhere, Katie's Been Gone are some of my favorites. There's 24 songs, which is the same amount of songs that are in Self-Portrait, only this just feels like so much more rewarding of a listen. That being said, there's a few times where I have had time to listen to this start to finish. Maybe more for like a road trip or in the car. I understand it's more of a compilation as well, so I'm not detracting points for that. I'm just saying it's an odd collection of songs. It feels rustic, old-timey, kind of like a circus. It's nice to hear the collaboration of musicians, legendary musicians that are putting together a ragtag set of demos and recordings that appeal to many, but there's a certain number of these songs that kind of are sort of forgettable, or at least fade into the background of obscurity for me. Tears of Rage is not one of those songs, nor is the song This Wheel's on Fire. Both of those, to me, have stronger connotation as the band songs. I think their renditions of them are a bit more famous, but I'm sure Dylan had a great deal of play in the songwriting of both of them. $1 Million Bash, Odds on Ends, they sound like old-timey ragtag circus songs. I suppose the album cover image doesn't really help my the notion in my head that it's like a circus, because it's just a bunch of odd characters. Anyways, I'll put this in high B tier, just behind New Morning. Now, Desire was created with the band of people that toured with him on the Rolling Thunder Revue, such as Scarlett Rivera and all those musicians. So this was released in 1976, and as largely one of his almost collaborative albums. A lot of these were written and worked with by this man named Jacques Levy, I don't know. Sorry, I can't speak. But anyways, a lot of these songs, the main problem that I have with Desire, because some people are like, Desire is my favorite album. It's my favorite album by Bob Dylan. But like, all of these songs sound better live than they do in the studio. And I might have heard that sentiment from someone else, not like, it could be an opinion that's not like I came up with myself, but I heard it somewhere and I'm like, I totally agree. I was like, yeah, I don't think I can describe that in a way better. Like, Hurricane's better, Isis is better, the song, One More Cup of Coffee's better, Oh Sister's better, Romance in Durango's better. I'm just looking at the track list, but I think even Black Diamond Bay, I don't think Black Diamond Bay was performed live, but that song is it's kind of another storytelling one, like Lily Rosemary and the Jack of Hearts. That's just like a great storytelling thing. It's a great narrative, is what I'm saying. Hurricane is probably his most political song. I'm trying to get Reuben Carter Hurricane out of President. I think it's a very important song. But that's one of the songs that reaches farther for like people that are stuck in Bob Dylan in the 60s. Hurricane is the only thing that they hear post Blood on the Tracks, kind of, and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds really good. And it is great. It's just the live versions I think are still so much better. Like Mozambique is just okay. Oh Sister is really sad. And then we come to Joey. So I actually have a video. I'm just plugging all the videos that I have of the songs I've already talked about. But I have a video on my channel about Joey. And the 11-minute song here is just misplaced, I feel like. And it's odd that he's defending this mafia member who killed people and then died. Like, he's making him into some sort of martyr, which is exactly what he shouldn't be doing, especially when he died in New York like 4 years before this album was released. I don't know what he was thinking. I have a whole video talking about this. It's a very fascinating. But I feel like that in the middle of the album, it just doesn't make sense. And maybe if it was a shorter song, I could forgive it more. Like, I'll forgive Desolation Row. I'll forgive Sad Away to the Lowlands for being such an 11-minute song. But like that, like, I think kind of like after a while, certain songs don't deserve to be that long. And I feel like I mean, I really like the chorus, and it is catchy. It's a really catchy song. It sounds like a giant epic, like they're explaining his entire life of Joey Gallo. But like, I don't know. Like, it's just like, I think after a point, it's too much. Romance in Durango, I love. That's one of my favorite songs on this album. It's got like, it's fat. I would say it's pretty underrated. I feel like when people think of this album, they don't think of Romance in Durango, which is such a shame because it's great. And of course it ends with Sarah, which is basically the final breakup letter to his wife, ending the divorce thing. It's literally called Sarah, and confirms that Side Eye Way of the Williams was written for her, not Joan Baez. Sorry, Joan. But like I said, Desire, it's got a cohesive feel. It's just another thing is that it's not it's most collaborative album. So like some of these songs might not have 100% been written by Bob Dylan. I think some people have a problem with that. One More Cup of the Coffee, all of the violin playing by Scarlett Rivera on this album is great. I love Scarlett. Her violin and strings instrument is like, I feel like integral to Dylan at this time. Like, I don't know how he found her. Like, whether I'd have to do some research. Of course, I saw the Rolling Thunder documentary, but like that didn't explain anything. It's like it's Dylan, it's Scorsese, it's all like jumbled up. It's like it's all a myth. That's what it is. So like I can't trust any of it for being actual fact, which I love. I love the fact that it's a myth. But like, I don't know. Desire as an album, I feel is very cohesive, but I feel like it's definitely B tier. I'm going to put it behind the Basement Tapes. Street Legal is a very decisive album. Divisive album, sorry. A lot of either you hate it or you love it. Some people, that's what it seems like. People are like, love it, they hate it. I think it's like somewhere in between. I don't think it's like the best thing he's ever done. I don't think it's the worst thing he's ever done either. People criticize how sharp his voice is, how the singers in the background don't really like match. Actually, I don't even know what they criticize it for because I think it's rather beautiful. And I just wish that a lot of these songs are played live more because like the Japan Bukodan set from earlier in 1978 doesn't include all songs from this album. I think they have like one or two that were unreleased at the time, but they don't get the full punch of Street Legal. I love the album cover too, which is kind of like standing in the doorway like that. Not the song standing in the doorway, but you know what I mean. Changing of the Guards is just like, I had this song playing on vinyl, and my friends who were unaccustomed to Bob Dylan heard Changing of the Guards, and they're like, wow, this song actually sounds kind of good. And then immediately rolls over into New Pony, and they're like, I had a pony, his name was Lucifer. And it's just like, it's so bad. Like everyone makes clowns on New Pony, and for rightful so, although the guitar is kind of cool. All these songs like Baby Stop Crying, like Is Your Love in Vain, True Love Tends to Forget, We Better Talk This Over, even Senora I like, and of course Where Are You Tonight, Journey Through Dark Heat, New Time to Think. Some of these songs do kind of sound similar, but I think just the whole aesthetic that he had going in 1978, where he would go to these shows, wear a top hat, and start performing like Elvis with background singers and like crazy stuff going on. It's another era of him reinventing himself, really. And I feel like this is what happened right after the divorce happened. So it's just like, it was like a burst of inspiration, maybe a burst of like life kind of in him, because he was free from the marriage, or I don't know what was going on in his life. But Changing the Guards really shows that. It's really like a reflection of how he was throughout like his entire career up to that point. You know, he's 16 years he's been on the road, or like famous more or less, and now he's coming to terms with that and has to like, you know, shape himself as a musician. And I think it's a good album. I don't think his voice is too sharp, and if it is sharp, it's been sharper before, so stop complaining about that, about his voice being jagged, because at that point, just like, if he's trying to, I think it sounds rather nice is what I'm saying. And the background singers too, it kind of sounds like gospel, kind of like hinting at what's coming next in this discography, but I don't think that's a bad thing, the gospel-ness singers of the background of that. I worded that terribly, but I think it's quite a good thing. I really like True Love Tends to Forget. I mean, I don't think that the lyrics are that like compelling. A lot of it is just like love songs. Besides Changing the Guards, of course, a lot of the lyrics are just like, I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering. I need to look at the lyrics better of Street Legal, but I don't think they're like they're just kind of like love songs. But just there's a lot of turbulence in his life, and I think that's what makes this song so special, this album so special, because it's just like at a crossroads in his life, and I think it captures that. And it's happy. I would say it's happier than a lot of his stuff. So I would say that's like, it does put you in a cheerful mood a lot of the time, which is always, I give points to albums for putting me in a cheerful mood. I would put this on B tier, right between Basement Tapes and Desire. So I've just been going on B tier for like a while now, but I would say a lot of these are B tier albums. But yeah, this one's gonna go right in the middle of B tier. Oh my god, that is so much better lighting. I had the light up there. I don't know why I didn't do that before. This looks so much better. Okay, now we're talking about 1979's Slow Train Coming. So Bob Dylan, he had the hotel room vision. He saw Jesus, and now he's preaching the gospel for 3 years straight. Just gospel music. He's delivering fiery, preachy sermons in the middle of his songs. This is a very misunderstood period in Dylan's career. Now, Slow Train Coming, I think it's so funny that he recruited Mark Knopfler off of the Dire Straits. He's the guitarist or whatever, and he's like, hey, I want you to work on the album with me, and he didn't tell him it was going to be all religious. Like, I Gotta Serve Somebody, I actually saw him play that live. Gotta Serve Somebody is a great song. It may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, but Lord, you gotta serve somebody. And I think it's just a very interesting thing. Precious Angel, that song is like so underappreciated. It's so happy. Like it's so incredibly happy. He's just kind of like la 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 la, and it's just like some of the lyrics are beautiful. Like the singing in the background is beautiful. It's just everything about it is amazing. The song's like Slow Train, which is the title track. But I also made a video about this, but it's talking about how the Slow Train Coming is like. This song's kind of political too, I feel like, but it's like vague enough where he's like kind of saying something, but not entirely saying something about America or anything going on. But the artwork as well of the Slow Train coming around the bend is supposed to be like the change coming. You notice like the pickaxe that the guy is working on the railroad with is like shaped like a cross, so you can see that it was like supposed to be religious, of course, in the imagery. Man Gives Names to All the Animals. This is such a good song. It's like a banger. Imagine dancing to like Man Gives Names to All the Animals. Like Timothy Chalamet posted a video as an Instagram story, like when he was doing the Complete Unknown like build up, like the advertising and stuff, of him playing Man Gave Names to All the Animals in his car or some Uber or something. It was hilarious. It's like I love that song. And some of the other songs I just forget about, like Gonna Change My Way of Thinking, When He Returns, When You Gonna Wake Up. I feel like I do forget about some of these albums, some of these songs, unless I'm listening to the album start to finish. I think that it's got like this interesting groove to a lot of the songs that I feel like is new and unique. It's like he kind of like not invented this new sense of gospel rock, but just kind of like gave new life into it, and I think that was very cool of him to do. Like, even I'm not religious myself, too religious, but I can still enjoy this music. A lot of it is just like catchy, like for example, Precious Angel, Gotta Serve Somebody. Like the polarizing, like he turned away so many of his fans by changing to Christian music. Like what? Like, imagine doing that. Like, this is even more radical. Everyone's always like, Newport 1965. Newport 1965. It's the most, like, crazy thing. He went electric. This is even more radical in terms of, like, changing and subverting his audience, his expectations than that before. I think it's even, like, more polarizing. But he was boldly committed to doing this. I think it's fair to say that even if you don't necessarily agree with the religious stance that he's trying to show to people or trying to get people to believe in, you can still enjoy the music because he's singing it with conviction and clarity, and it's just enjoyable music. I would rank this high C tier, just above the two self-titled Dylan albums. This to me is a C tier album. So guys, it's my third night of doing this, and I'm so excited to talk about Saved from 1980. Slow Train Coming to Me, which is the album before this, kind of felt like a groovy introduction to Bob Dylan's Christian period. This just dives headfirst into the waters of his gospel era. You're just completely submerged. Because of the strong preachiness in this one, it's kind of the hardest to get behind in terms of all of the ones in the Christian era. What a lot of people don't tend to see is that some of the songs produced during this era are beautiful and soulful, and you can see that on Trouble No More, the bootleg series. However, it has to wrestle with all this particular encompassing theme, which is that Bob Dylan, who usually creates open to interpretation music, is now telling you how to save your soul. The song Pressing On is like probably my favorite. It's the best example of this soulful church-like music, and at best it's extremely catchy even if you can't get behind the message. Like pressing on to the higher power of my Lord. Okay, I'll stop singing. But anyways, the album cover artwork, not the one that I've shown, which is the one that's featured on the Bob Dylan website. The original album artwork shows this creation of Adam, kind of finger of God coming down to a bunch of hands reaching up with this apocalyptic red skies in the background, and this with the title name Saved. It also makes me think that they went with this alternate cover for the website just to like not scare away potential non-Christian listeners. I truly think this is our first D-tier album. It's not as good as Slow Train Coming because it feels less original, and the intenseness of his faith is just so overwhelming, like in your face. At best, the album is forgettable, although it's not unlistenable. Solid Rock is a good song, but I think I've heard better in Dylan's catalog. It's almost kind of like a warning to follow religion or else, and it feels way more extreme, like fiery brimstone sermon level of music than either other Christian album in the Bob Dylan Christian album trilogy, if you can call it that. In the Garden is alright. The songs Saved and Covenant Woman are actually pretty good, but I just feel like we give them too much credit because we love Bob Dylan and we're glossing over them, and when in reality it feels very not Bob Dylan, if that's a thing, to be creating this. Like I said, I love the background singers and all the aesthetic, it's great, but him telling you what to believe just sounds like a contradiction to all of his other music. But yeah, I'd place this in D tier. Not all the songs are bad, but you'd be surprised if you caught me listening to this, unless I'm revisiting it for a specific purpose. If anything, I like the song Pressing On, and everything else I kind of fades into the background. I tend to forget. Shot of Love from 1981. Shot of Love is my favorite album in the Christian trilogy, primarily because it seems to me to at least have some themes of love and self-discovery, and the fact that it's just so incredibly happy. If Soul Train Coming was nonchalant and mysterious, and if Saved was in your face and overwhelming, then this to me is heartwarming, upbeat, and fun. Maybe not completely fun and upbeat because we've got some somber moments. For instance, songs like Heart of Well, however, are just great to listen to, and they put you in a swell mood. Imagine, instead of being strongly devotional and preachy like Saved from 1980, this one feels more open, it feels spiritual, and in that it's less stuck on one ideology and feels more joyfully human. To me, this is probably one of my favorite Dylan albums of the 1980s, a time where others were skeptical of his, at the time, current talent. Property of Jesus somehow got me singing along and dancing, which is odd. Was I dancing? I don't know. Which is odd. As I said, I'm not very religious or at all. But it's presented in a way that fosters self-discovery and love. The Groom Still Waiting at the Altar is an amazing rock song. It's catchy. Watered Down Love, maybe a little watered down poetically, but it's relatively simple. It's so upbeat and happy, and all you can do is appreciate it. Even the back end of the album with Dead Men, or the In the Summertime or Trouble represent strong examples of Dylan's continuing exploration of music and evolution of songwriting as a musician. Finishing the album with Every Grain of Sand is probably the most spiritual that Dylan has been since I don't know when. It's like a 6-minute tender exploration of all of the human soul, and I like that it doesn't provide all the answers to the questions that it seems to pose, but answers enough to provide guidance and insight into the human condition. It's no doubt understood why he chose this song to end all of the Rough and Rowdy Way shows, all the concerts with. It's about appreciating the mysteries of life, and it's just so powerful. The composition of the music itself sounds elegant and soft in the lyrics of Every Grain of Sand. I have gone from rags to riches in the sorrow of the night, in the violence of a summer dream, in the chill of a wintry light, in the bitter dance of loneliness fading into space, in the broken mirror of innocence on every forgotten face. I hear the ancient footsteps like the motion of the sea. Sometimes I turn, there's someone there, other times it's only me. I am hanging in the balance of the reality of man, like every sparrow falling, like every grain of sand. Yeah, you heard that. You heard that, guys. That, another strike to Beatles fans. can't compete with that. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I just think the Beatles are kind of overrated. Okay, don't attack me now. But you knew this was a Bob Dylan tier list. You knew this when I started this. You knew that I'm obsessive over this. But if you go on Instagram, there are a lot of people that are more obsessive than me. So I'm just gonna continue. Yeah, I love the community though. I love the community, and I want to be part of it. Actually, I'm gonna put my Instagram. I'm gonna pop it up. It's probably in the description. I have a Bob Dylan Instagram that I started like 6 months ago. Alright, off topic. Anyways, Shadow Love shows Dylan grappling with faith, belief, spirituality, pain, temptation, as well as joyous love that life has to offer. To me, this is a high B tier because every time I listen to it, it gets better and better, and I adore the mood atmosphere that it creates. I can't believe it took me this long to get to this album. I think all that I listened to of the Christian stuff was Slow Train Coming, and then I couldn't get past that for a long time, and once I listened to this, it was like a breath of fresh air. But Slow Train Coming was as far as I could go for the longest time. This is controversial, but to me, this is better than anything in B tier currently. That's a pretty controversial thing. That means it's better than Desire, better than New Morning. I think the happiness is what gets me. Like, I'm a sucker for happy music, and this just genuinely has impacted my life through its thoughtful speculation in the world. It's a shame that the Spotify streams of like all these songs are just incredibly low. Sorry, New Morning, Basement Tapes, Street Legal, Desire, The Times. Maybe you need a shot of love. Yeah. Maybe in subsequent listens I will change this, but to me this just keeps getting higher and higher, and I think it's because the consistency of the track list. It just sounds very coherent, and I like it when the track list is balanced. I think I've mentioned that like a million times, but yeah. Going out of the Christian era, Christian trilogy, and we're moving into 1983, where Dylan is moving back towards secular work with Infidels. Now, Infidels has got some mystic spiritual themes still as well, which I feel like are aftershocks from Shot of Love. You see, I'm conflicted on Infidels because it shares problems that I have with A, the Freewheeling, and B, with Self-Portrait, and that A, legendary compositions are placed next to incredibly just okay songs, and B, the production makes it worse, which seems to be a trend for the 1980s. I'm saying this for Empire Burlesque 2, which is up next, but the bootleg series is a lot better mixed, and I'm saying that as someone who knows nothing about the technicality of music. I know nothing, but it just sounds better when it's mixed better, and we didn't get those fully released until like almost 40 years later. It's so funny, people online begging, like, can we go back in time and ask Dylan to add Blind Willie McTell? I don't understand why he shelves his greatest material, because if that was on this album, my perception of the album would have changed a lot, I think, because that's just an amazing song. It's just this forgotten piano demo that's just resurfaced, and it's just from 1991. Or no, it was made here, but Sweetheart Like You, the song, is a perfectly crafted song, and it's catchy too, but I really can't get behind the line, you know, a woman like you should be at home, that's where you belong, taking care of someone else who don't know how to do you wrong, because that's just like awful. And I feel like the chorus of the song as well makes it seem like he's a savior figure to a damsel in distress, like kind of thing, and it just didn't age well at all, and isn't really that good. But the song itself is catchy, so I'm conflicted. Don't Fall Apart on Me Tonight was one of my first songs of Dylan that I heard from the 80s, so I've got some tie to that. But the first version that I heard was the bootleg version, like Take Two or whatever. So when I heard the studio version, I got major like ick, because it's like infinitely worse. Like, it's the same song but just worse on this album. Like, I can't unhear it. It's just so frustrating, because like Neighborhood Bully is the equivalent of Street Legal's New Pony. In other words, a total joke of a song to me that isn't good at all. Yet comes after is a License to Kill. I'm not talking about the Bond song. I'm talking, because this came before that. But License to Kill is probably one of the best elaborate explorations of the moral justification of violence that I've seen. It's incredibly thought-provoking. I'll read some lyrics. Man thinks because he rules the earth he can do with it as he please. If things don't change soon, he will. Oh, man has invented his doom. First step was touching the moon. All he believes are his eyes, and his eyes, they just tell him lies. But there's a woman on my block, sitting there in the cold chill. She say, who gonna take away his license to kill? The woman in this song is like a passive spectator to man's violence, and it's almost begging everyone in the world to get along, just painting a perfect picture of a world gone wrong reference. But it's just vague enough to leave it open to interpretation as well. So it's like, why are these two songs on the same album, License to Kill, Neighborhood Bully, for example, yet let alone right next to each other? And then there's other songs like Union Sundown and Man at Peace. They're okay, but they're just forgettable. Of course, I'm not refuting that Joker Man is a masterpiece. It's a mythical, beautiful, elegant, dreamy musical experience that I'm not even going to get into. Also a video of that on my channel, but that video isn't that good, so ignore that. But when on an album with 8 songs that I really enjoy, like half of them, this is like a major negative for me if I only enjoy like half the album. And not that I don't enjoy the other songs, it's just like, I don't know, there's something about it. There's the production, it's the certain stuff that I can't really get behind, even though a lot of the songs are still really good. I'll put this on high C tier right behind Slow Train. I wish I could put it higher, and that's why it's so frustrating to me, because it feels like wasted potential in so many different parts of this album, although I love Joker Man. Joker Man's amazing. 1985, Empire Burlesque. He goes fully 80s disco, Bob Dylan disco. I mean, it's not really disco, but like it just sounds like the 80s style of what songs in the 80s sound like. And that's probably why he's just following the trend, basically. Just okay. Tight Connection to My Heart and Dark Eyes I enjoy. These are the first and the last tracks, but everything sandwiched in between, I don't know if I can enjoy or really get behind. Everything else is fun for like background music, but it's not something that I've actively enjoyed or tried to listen to. It just kind of sounds like generic 1980s music, but it's Dylan singing instead, like it's remixed or something. Sounds like he's trying to jump on the trend. A lot of the sound mixing and overdubbing ruins it. Now, once again, I don't know anything about the technical side of music, but I can see that the different mixes in Springtime of New York bootleg series make the music so much better than it was before. So clearly they did something wrong in production. It just almost feels like a super long movie with horrible pacing. Like if I shut my brain off, I can enjoy it more, but forcing myself to enjoy it is never a good sign at all. When I'm listening to these songs that like, I just feel like, I don't know, it's just odd. It's just, something about it is just odd. And like, for example, When the Night Comes Down Falling from the Sky, When the Night Comes Falling from the Sky could be like a great song, but the way it comes across, it just didn't age well, and it sounded like Dylan was trying way too hard to fit in with the decade, which is the opposite of what Dylan normally does in terms of following the norm. I'll Remember You, Clean Cut Kid, they're forgettable, sorry. Emotional Yours is alright, I suppose, but I feel like I have the same problem with it as the song I just talked about. I can't say that. When the Night Comes Falling from the Sky. There we go. Perfecto. Take one. It's Emotional Yours is emotional, but because of the way it's produced, I feel like any possible emotion that I could possibly derive from it is just taken away. Like, it's just ruined. Overall, Empire Burlesque, I have on vinyl. When I spin it, it's just, I shut my brain off. I'm like, I love Tight Connection to My Heart. That's such a great song. And I love Dark Eyes because it's just kind of emotional too. And it comes back to the acoustic stuff. But like, everything in between is just like, what is going on? Like, I can groove to Tight Connection to My Heart, because especially the one in the bootleg series, but I don't know. Like, it's just questionable. Questionable is a good word to describe it. And I don't think it deserves all the hate, because I'm sure he had fun experimenting. It's just that the end product is questionable. Now, I don't have much more to say about this, because I feel like if I keep talking about Empire Burlesque, I'll keep bashing it unnecessarily. Still, for me, this is pretty low on the list. Not the worst of the worst, but it's just not great. I say this is D tier behind Saved. Knocked Out Loaded from 1986. Now, I'm not even gonna lie, I listened to this like once, like back in the day, and I hated it and never listened to it again. It's got the same sort of sound as the prior album, which isn't really a good thing, although maybe it's slightly more rock and roll. Some of these songs are arranged differently in post-80s live renditions. I think they are. Maybe fact check me on that. But maybe they sound okay then, but for the actual album, this is pretty bad. I saw one of these in a record store of a Knocked Out Loaded vinyl, and my friend pointed out to me, and it's like, wow, that's only $12. I could have gotten to it, but like, would I really want to spin Knocked Out Loaded, like, just for Brownsville Girl? Like, no thank you. Brownsville Girl is why most people put this album higher than it should be, but is it that good? I can name better Bob Dylan songs. Even if I had a higher opinion of Brownsville Girl, once again, I'm rating the album, not the song. As for Knocking on Heaven's Door from Pat Garrett, that one seems unrateable to me as a soundtrack album, but this one's got no excuse, as it's his own music in song, in form, and everything. One line from Brownsville Girl that maybe makes this worth listening to is that I really enjoy. It is strange how some people who suffer together have stronger connections than people who are most content. I don't have any regrets. They can talk about me plenty when I'm gone. You always said people don't do what they believe in. They just do what's most convenient, and then they repent. Sure, that's like thought-provoking, but is anything else on this album thought-provoking? Definitely not. Now, revisiting this and trying to review it gives me like a bad taste in my mouth. All these songs, like Under Your Spell, Precious Memories, I feel like they could be better if they're arranged differently or sung or produced or anything differently. It just feels like Dylan is losing his grip on music making. It's an ugly detour from Infidels, which even though I kind of bash Infidels, it's so much better than this. Right, I'm really trying to salvage this and compliment this album, but I can't really. The songs are barely catchy and provoking, and the experience of listening to Knocked Out Loaded is pretty dull, and I'm just saying that, I don't know. This is getting last place for now in F tier. Bye bye Knocked Out Loaded. I'm sorry, but I don't like you. Down in the Groove feels like hardly a groove, to be honest. It's just a strange otherworldly listen, but not otherworldly in a good way. It's just weird. It doesn't fit in any context. Like, when would I listen to this? I can't listen to it in the car. I can't listen to it at home. It's just mind-numbing, and it's only 32 minutes, yet I'm waiting for it to be over. This is Dylan in the Traveling Wilburys era. He's collaborating with the Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and the Wilburys. Of course, you got Roy Orbison, Jeff Lynne, and George Harrison. But you'd think that would give him like a renaissance of creative energy, but this feels half-baked in the definition of boring. I don't mean to call it boring. It's just I'm looking out for songs, lyrics, melodies, anything to compliment or talk about, and I'm finding nothing. I suppose Sylvia was a good song, but besides that, this album is kind of laughable in my book. Even Knocked Out Loaded feels a little bit more put together than this. Like I said, I'm waiting for it to be over, and the album is only 32 minutes. That's just terrible. Ugliest Girl in the World is a funny name for the song, but the song itself is overhyped, and I can't see myself enjoying this. People like the song Shenandoah a lot, but I can't really get behind that either. Finding a good song in this track list is like searching through clutter for your car keys. There's just no coherent vision. There's no vision at all. Yet somehow he's got crazy backup musicians like Eric Clapton, Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols, Sly and Robbie, and members of the Grateful Dead. Like, I think that guy Hunter or something. But then the end product is just flat, boring, and uninspiring. So it's like, I don't know. I just learned this, but apparently 8 of the 10 songs are covers or co-written, which means he only has 2 solo written songs on this album, adding to the idea that he was in this creative decline if he's relying on all these other famous musicians as a crutch. Like, he's just not invested. It's generic, it's incomplete, it's dull. I cannot give this one any love, and frankly, I want to stop talking about it because there's nothing remotely interesting to talk about in Down in the Groove. I like the song Sylvia, like I said, but that was carried by the Grateful Dead. That was not Dylan's work, I feel like. I'm ranking the album, like I said, not the song, so I can't just base it off of Sylvia and say, oh, I like this. This is bottom of the barrel for me. On prior renditions of this tier list, I did put this album in D tier, but I think even that's too generous. I would say it's worse than Knocked Out Loaded because at least the album seems a bit more coherent in his vision. I hate to see him use all these famous musicians like Eric Clapton, the Grateful Dead, and then it amounts to basically nothing. This is F tier. Bye-bye Down in the Groove. I didn't groove at all. Bye. In 1989, Bob Dylan got his act together. Maybe he did get, quote, lost in the 80s, but if so, he found his way out of it. Alright, this is a strong, coherent vision of an album. It's dark and bold and mysterious. One problem, it almost seems too vague with some of what it might be trying to say, but if anything, this adds to this mysterious vibe, like the song Everything Is Broken. What is broken? I suppose everything, but what does that mean? But this album is just full of great songs I wouldn't exactly pen as classics, but they're highly enjoyable and such a step up from what he was doing before. The quality isn't that of his peak music, but it's still of high quality, I would say. Man in the Long Black Coat is such a simple song, but it's so amazing all the same. The beat is catchy, and it's dark and mysterious like the rest of the album. Most of the time, it's just a great depressing song. I really like the Telltale Signs bootleg version of that one about the end of a relationship. It demonstrates human perseverance to impossible odds and difficult circumstances and how a man is just trying to move on. Ring Them Bells and When Teardrops Fall are dreary, but not even in a bad way. Like, I have to say, I at least remember more in the first half of this album than I do remember the second half of the album. Not to say that it falls off in quality, but I just think that the coherent dark mood he's trying to create still remains the entire album. It's just the second half is just or maybe after most of the time, I just forget all of the songs. That's the 6th song, and I guess the last 4 songs maybe. Critics at the time praised the hell out of this, Oh Mercy. I'm calling this the best since Blood on the Tracks. I sort of disagree with this. That disregards like all of his Christian stuff, Desire, Street Eagle, and more, because I think its praise was just elevated at that time because what came before it was just trash. I think it is a lot better album than what the world was getting from Dylan in prior years. So in comparison, of course, it's that much better. But now I'm looking back on it, and some of the songs do feel a little dry or repetitive. I can't name any songs in particular. It just feels that way in a listen, start to finish. I find I like some of the individual songs better than I do the full album as a whole, and for that reason, I'm detracting some points. While I do think Oh Mercy is a good album, I just think there are some better albums from Dylan out there, so I'll give this a low B tier. Whoa there, B tier. It's getting a little crowded. I'm not going to underscore times that are changing, so it'll have to be behind that at the end of B tier. To 1990s, Under the Red Sky. Wiggle Wiggle time, everyone. Under the Red Sky, for those of you who don't know, is an album of nursery rhyme style children's songs that I'm not sure if this is confirmed or not, but for his young daughter at the time that he made it for. It's funny to hear Dylan's voice against the backdrop of songs like Handy Dandy. Handy Dandy is actually a fire song, though, and I kind of like it better than Wiggle Wiggle, to be honest, even though Wiggle Wiggle is very funny. This album gets a lot of hate as well. I do feel like it is deserved, some of it, but definitely not all of the hate is deserved, because sometimes you have to enjoy the happy feeling of music. It's just fun. I don't think it's meant to be a masterpiece, so if you get that thinking that everything has to be perfect out of your mind and appreciate the groove of this, I think you'll see that Under the Red Sky, you can see it in a different light, perhaps. Maybe that's just like Dylan. I feel like if you didn't know Dylan and you heard this, you'd be like, what is this? But one thing I was going to say is that the Born in Time studio rendition here is nothing compared to the mystical one on the Telltale Signs bootleg. But I almost appreciate this album version of the song better just from the other version. I can see how the song grew, like its evolution. Cats in the Well is probably my favorite song, as it's either a nursery rhyme, it's literally a nursery rhyme, and it acts and feels like one. Either that or the title track Under the Red Sky, which he's been playing live a lot recently. This song's pretty good, I'd say. It just if new fans hear him perform this song live and don't know the backstory of this album, they'll probably think the lyrics are pretty goofy, like the little boy and the girl were baked in a pie. Like, it's just funny, you know? It's not meant to be a poetic fortress of meaning. It's just meant for children, and that's why some people probably see this as a joke of an album. I personally don't see it as a joke. I think it's an okay album that did what it set out to accomplish if there was a set goal, but in the end it's pretty forgettable. I like the album cover photo, and it makes it seem like he's going to be doing something like dramatic or action-packed, and then it's just a TV talking song and 10,000 Men. Like I said, it's easy to clown all over this album, and I'm not praising it as an amazing album either, but I appreciate that Dylan has a variety of talent and likes to experiment, even if those experiments don't always turn out perfect. In that, I think I have more respect for this album than those who most can't get over its bizarre feeling. They'll call it lazy, or like Bob Dylan was just messing with his fans. I do see their point, but I think that they're missing the enjoyment of that carefree feeling that it emanates, something that I'm sure a lot of people could wish they have more of, happy innocence. To me, this is C or D tier. I think it's pretty forgettable overall still, and I hold myself to that statement. I'll put it high D tier above Saved. Once again, that doesn't mean that I dislike it. It's just that compared to the rest of his work, it is hard to hold it in the highest esteem. Now we're getting an album from 1992 and 1993, I believe. Good As I've Been to You and World Gone Wrong. Now, people normally rank these two together like sibling albums for a reason, as they are kind of part of their own series, I feel like. So I'm going to respect that, and it makes my job easier, so I'm following suit. Essentially, these are folk albums from the early 90s consisting of entirely traditional songs, meaning all covers, no original work. His voice is very distinct in the early 90s. It's pretty nasally. If you dislike it, I recommend looking up on YouTube the New York City Supper Club shows, concerts. That's around this time, and I think from 1993. And it'll sort of trap you like a fly in amber to brainwash you to enjoy his voice during this time, because it has a sort of weathered yet timeless appeal that I can't exactly explain unless you hear it and keep listening to it. But I will admit that these two albums came to me pretty recently. I knew a couple songs off of World Gone Wrong, like Blood in My Eyes and World Gone Wrong, the title track, but it was sort of hard to break into if you just heard a couple songs. However, I've broken into it, and now I greatly appreciate them. That being said, because they haven't been with me for very long, they haven't really had time to grow on me, and I've had the sneaking suspicion that they will have the ability to grow on me more because of their timeless quality. The guitar work is impressive, it's enjoyable, despite them just being acoustic covers. As good as I've been to you, their album is more fragmented and feels less cohesive compared to the mood of Good World Gone Wrong, which seems more consistent. However, some of the songs on As Good As I've Been to You I enjoy better, if I can ignore the crappy album cover of his face. I love Tomorrow Night as Good As I've Been to You. I love Froggy Went a Courtin', Blackjack Davy. What was the other one? Step Up and Go. There's so much consistent quality. Blood on My Eyes off of World Gone Wrong is probably the most well-known song off of these two albums. You know, you got him with the top hat walking around the music video, like, woke up this morning, feeling blue, see a good-looking girl. However, the album has so many highlights too, like Delia is phenomenal. I think it's hard to dislike these albums, but if you prefer rock and roll, and if you prefer folk songs, then you might have a preference for or against these albums. I tend to agree with that they're of high quality. It's just that I haven't had much time to appreciate them, and I will be honest about that. Placing these albums is going to be difficult for me. B tier is already pretty crowded, and I think they're definitely C tier for me. It's just placing them is difficult, so I'll put them smack dab in the middle of C tier. As Good As I've Been to You, rating slightly better than Road Gone Wrong, just because I like some of the songs better. But they're practically the same in terms of like how good they are in terms of enjoyment in my eye. Once again, these are likely to go up on this ranking if I keep listening to them, because that there's that timeless appeal that I was talking about that I can't shake. It's just so cool. And the aesthetic of him just walking around the top hat, especially on World Gone Wrong, that's a bit more of a dreary album, but it's just very, very enjoyable. These are going to be middle of C tier for me. Now, everyone praises Time Out of Mind for being like this crazy 1997 comeback. Like, oh my god, it's the best since Blood on the Tracks, as if he didn't make anything in between Blood and Tracks in 1997. But like, I feel like it's a really great quality album that really enhanced his songwriting. Like, there's a gap between 1993 to 2007 or 4 years that he probably honed in on like his craft, and like maybe I feel like every great thing comes from a divorce. In terms of his music, like every time he has a divorce, he just makes like this crazy music, and this album is so sad. And honestly, that's like one of my biggest problems with it. It's just too swampy and just sad and kind of like overbearing. Now everyone loves this album, and it's got great albums. Like, for example, Make You Feel My Love. That's the Adele song that everyone goes crazy about. But this was actually a Bob Dylan song. Little did you know. But like Lovesick and what's the song? Can't Wait. I saw him perform live. That was amazing. And some of the live versions. That's another thing. Kind of like Desire. I feel like Time Out of Mind is better performed live than it is in the studio, on the studio release in 1997. Everyone always puts this S tier. This is not S tier for me. I'm just telling you now, it's probably going to be somewhere in A. It's definitely very good, and the songwriting's out of the world. But for example, like Standing in the Doorway, it's just so like you can't listen to it without like just bursting into tears or something. I don't know. Last night I danced with a stranger, but she just reminded me you were the one. You left me standing in the doorway crying in the dark land of the sun. Like, what? That is insane. Like, who says stuff like that? That is just so sad. And the problem is, it's like, not like I don't like sad music, because you can like get into feels and get relatable music and really like feel like you're relating to something. But the problem is that it's just consistently in the track list continuously sad. So like Blood on the Tracks, that's a sad album, but it goes up and down. You go through every single different emotion, and you feel like there's more variety to it. This is consistently swampy and consistently sad, and it's just like listening at the start to finish is so, I don't know. And I can't really get into the closing track, Highlands, that much, even though I know that's a good song. It's just like, I think the song's like pretty long, over 10 minutes. I don't remember. I feel bad that I don't remember. But Cold Irons Bound, oh my god. If you hear that in the Mass Anonymous soundtrack, oh my god, it's so good. If anything, like I said, that's another song that's performed live better. Million Miles, Trying to Get to Heaven, Till I Fell in Love with You. Not Dark Yet is just, it's phenomenal. It's an amazing song. And I feel like I'm bashing Time Out of Mind too much. It's really a work of songwriting. It's amazing. My only problem is that A, it's better performed live, and it's too sad. It needs like some variety in there. I'm putting this at the end of A tier, like behind Nashville Skyline, because I know it's coming up, and I feel like that provides some space for that. But it's good. It's just I would say that's a good place in my mind, even though most people would put it way higher than that. It's just, maybe it's because I don't have it on vinyl. I feel like if I had it on vinyl, I would enjoy it like 10 times more. There are classics in the Bob Dylan discography and classics in his current set list. It's just I can't get behind the monotonous kind of sadness that is emanating from this. Love and Theft from 2001 is the second album of Bob Dylan's so-called late career comeback, and I've just been obsessing over it. I won't shut up about it. I think it's one of the greatest things ever created. This is better than Time Out of Mind, hands down, 100%. Yet most people don't even know about it. It's very bluesy, influenced by so many different styles. And every song is perfect, maybe not perfect, but there's no low points throughout. It's just every song is just a hit. It feels upbeat and happy in parts, somber and sad in others, and overtly personal for such a late career item of music. It sounds like nothing I've heard from any other artist, and that's why I'm drawn to it like a moth to a light. A lot of people have found solace in this vibrant musicality. Feels like an explosion of creativity is what I'm trying to say. This album was actually released on September 11th, 2001, and because of that, this album has become intertwined with the tragedy to some. A lot of people have found understanding and strength in the album's lyrics, a sense of sad uncertainty and dread, as well as unexpected humor, and perhaps even patriotism with its blend of American music styles. Mississippi, which is the second song on the album, is one of the more regretful portraits of an aging person with many things that one wishes they could undo, and that's a song that Dylan was tinkering with for at least a while, at least several years, as shown by the Telltale Signs bootleg series. It feels very fitting that he finally got it right in this album, what he wanted the song to be. It found its home. Some of my favorite lines from that song are, "All my powers of expression and thought so sublime could never do justice in reason or rhyme." Or, well, the emptiness is endless, cold as the clay. You can always come back, but you can't come back all the way. That last line in particular hits home to something that is hard to grapple with, whether we're able to go back to our past selves, past connections, and past lives, and perhaps we can get there, but not all the way. The secret is in reinventing and evolving ourselves. The line is sort of depressing, but the answer seems to be in one of his own lines from All Right Ma. He not busy being born is busy dying. Like Dylan said, life is not about finding yourself, life is about creating yourself. And I feel like that hits home in Mississippi. At least if you think about it more optimistic. The song itself is pretty sad. Okay, where do I start? Tweedledee Tweedledum is probably one of the coolest openings to an album. Summer Days is just upbeat and bluesy and fun. The song Honest With Me and Lonesome Day Blues are more rock and roll, I'd say, with fun guitar riffs and vivid lyrical imagery. It's also got some more tender, softer, personal moments in the album, such as Po' Boy or Moonlight. There's just so much to explore, and those songs are genuinely refreshing, and they feel like interesting. Like you keep listening and you discover more and more. He's also got another tribute song to an old musician. You see, Bob Dylan does this thing where he tends to create these tribute songs to old dead singers or famous people that have passed away that he admires. For example, Goodbye Jimmy Reed, Blind Willie McTell, Roll On John from Tempest, John Lennon, of course. Even one of his first compositions is a song to Woody Guthrie, Song to Woody, on the first album. So it feels natural that on Love and Theft we get High Water for Charlie Patton. So I've never heard of Charlie Patton actually, but I suppose maybe that's the point of him making these tribute songs so that people can be aware of these singers that made him who he is. Back to Love and Theft, where I start. A lot of Love and Theft is just guitar grooves like I've never heard before in his work. He seems to homage his past admirations I've been talking about in history with music, with new reinvention. He just reinvents what he's heard before, and maybe you can't go back all the way and like that line in Mississippi, but instead he creates that sense of remixing influences from his entire career and the career of so many, something he's done his whole life. It's like he lovingly committed theft to these influences that influenced him and created something that's no doubt a transformation of these styles and a testament to Dylan's genius. Now, I don't know if that's why it's called Love and Theft. I just kind of made it up on the spot because, I don't know. It's just so musically rich, just incredibly musically rich. It reels you in, and it's so addicting to listen to. All the songs are amazing and so underappreciated. There's really nothing bad I can say about Love and Theft. This is definitely S tier. I took the songwriting of A Time Out of Mind, which was superb. I amplified it up a notch, and then did it with purpose and power. To me, this is his comeback, if there ever was a comeback. I cannot get over how much I love Love and Theft. It's loose, it's fresh, it's a fun jam in so many places, and it hits you in the feels at parts. I'll put this behind Blonde and Blonde. If you're a Dylan fan and you haven't heard this, I don't even know what you're doing. Modern Times from 2006 is a really bluesy album, and it's incredibly enjoyable. Perhaps the first track, Thunder in the Mountain, references Alicia Keys, of course, which is funny, but it's the most upbeat song of the album, and the rest is a little bit slower, but it never falters because it's got so many different highlights. I will say there's like 3 songs that are just okay in the album, and I feel like I've heard them somewhere else. The Levee's Gonna Break, Rolling and Tumbling, and Someday Baby are just amazing, fun songs, but they all sort of blend together. I just wanted to call those songs out because they appear to be sort of weaker quality, slightly more simple. Everything else is amazing, personal and emotional, just as musically rich as Love and Theft was. For instance, When the Deal Goes Down, just as Mortality, or perhaps something coming in the future that's definite, changing, and final. It's ambitious, it's ambiguous enough. Tomorrow keeps turning around, we live and we die, we know not why, but I'll be with you when the deal goes down. Whatever that means. Beyond the Horizon is amazing. Spirit on the Water feels sentimental and strongly personal, like a person reflecting on many things. Some of these songs are kind of like on the longer side, but they're not really pushing it in my opinion. Spirit on the Water, for instance, is 7 minutes, but it doesn't even feel like that because you're sucked into the vivid imagery and whatnot. Working Man's Blues number 2 is great. Where Working Man Blues number 1 is, I've got no clue. Modern Times is definitely slower than Love and Theft, but it's still a strong album. It feels warm, like a dark room illuminated by candlelight, like you're hearing this music from a late night bar band or something. Ain't Talking, the closing track, is a little hard to get into for me, but I like that it stops at 8 minutes and knows when itself is too much. 2012's Tempest, Foreshadowing, does not do that. Definitely, Modern Times doesn't have a range of styles, or at least the range of styles that Love and Theft does with the variety of sounds that it has, but it still feels influenced by what Dylan loves, and I think his voice is just warm and timeless, educated and strong. I think some people don't agree with that, but in comparison to the years to come, it's a lot better. Even those 3 songs that I mentioned in the beginning that I felt were weaker are still great songs. They just feel a little borrowed, if that's the right word. I feel like at this point, Dylan, though, has established the reputation where it's okay to do that. Not steal music, but to reinvent something, existing media with his genius self. He did it in the 60s, he does it in the 2000s, all the same. I think it's just part of the music process that he really hones in on. Overall, Modern Times is brilliant. Definitely not S tier for me. I'm putting the smack dab in the middle of A tier. Better than Time Out of Mind, I say just behind Another Side of Bob Dylan. Modern Times, I find myself re-listening to more and more often. Like, it's like I listen to it once and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And I do it again, and I do it again. And so it's definitely like ascending in the ranks, but I don't think it would reach S tier for me. Together Through Life is from 2009. It's definitely a step down from what came before. I've used the word forgettable a lot in this video when it comes to some of these albums, but for this time I actually mean it. Also, we see with the beginning of what I call the growl. From 2008 to maybe 2014 or 2015, before the Sinatra series, Bob Dylan begins singing against the grain of his voice. I've heard someone describe it as that, and it kind of got locked in my head because there's no other better way to describe it. To everyone that is unaware and just generalizes all of his late career stuff as being bad because his voice sucks, clearly doesn't know what I'm talking about, because his voice on the past 2 albums has been aged, yes, but it's tolerable and even expressive. It's vivid, it's impressive to me. His voice is getting this way now in 2009 and reaches its zenith in the next album, Tempest. But for someone unaccustomed to Old Man Dylan, this can be pretty jarring and off-putting. I wouldn't say this is a positive, to be honest. His voice is tolerable in this album, but for moving forwards, it's impossible to ignore until the Sinatra covers soothe his voice. The song "If You Go to Houston" is pretty enjoyable, and then Bob Dylan saying just want to say hell's my wife's hometown, and making a whole song about how hell is his wife's hometown. That's a tongue twister. It's really interesting, and it's kind of funny, I guess. Forgetful Heart is fun, but a lot of these songs sound just okay to me. They're not anything too special and aren't really worth much re-listenability. I do enjoy the song I Feel a Change Coming On. To me, that's one of the major highlights of this album, one of the redeeming qualities. The song is just so happy, vivid, and fun. It feels like a springtime breath of fresh air after a long winter. Like things are changing in life, things are getting better and happy. The defining sounds of Together Through Life is the accordion. It plays on a lot of his songs, and it almost adds like this Latin vibe to it, and it's very distinctive. Like, I might not remember all the songs of this album, but if someone played one of the songs and I didn't know which one it was, but I could hear the accordion accordion, I would know it's from Together Life, or at least from this period. It feels less grand in production than the previous like 3 albums or more, so I feel like a bunch of musicians jamming together. It feels like a bunch of musicians jamming together casually, making some good music, no doubt, but not anything that would change the world or create deep meaning. It feels like Together Through Life definitely has a cohesive feeling, like it's one style of Dylan, it's another shade of his image, one that I'm not particularly crazy about, despite it being I'm not per se bad. I Feel a Change coming on that song, and the album shares that aesthetic, but I'm not sure if the rest is executed as excitingly or as fresh as that. For me, this is probably a D tier, high D tier, on the border of being C. It's not bad, it's just not amazing. Now we got Christmas in the Heart, also 2009. The album of traditional Christmas covers was done for charity. I forget which charity. I know I heard it somewhere, but basically it was done in a good spirit and what a better way to raise money for charity than singing Christmas songs, and that's certainly something that I can get behind. Everyone knows Must Be Santa, with the funny music video of Dylan messing around with the Santa hat. I won't lie, it's a pretty funny video. You should check it out if you haven't already. Dylan doesn't try to put his own spin on these classic Christmas songs. He sings them the traditional way, and his aged voice almost adds to it rather than detract. I respect this, as they are tried and true classic songs. I feel like messing with their arrangements could be disrespectful or turn out bad. Despite this being a seasonal thing, for instance, I wouldn't really listen to these songs this time of year. It's June, compared to if I listened to it in December. I would have to say I guiltily enjoy this album still. Arrangements of Do You Hear What I Hear and Little Drummer Boy are just plain enjoyable. There's nothing else to it. They're fun to hear. I'm not sure if it's meant to be taken seriously as a studio album, and many people I'd say would be cautious to listen to this because the idea of it itself is weird. But I think the more you think about it, the less weird it is, though, as Bob Dylan is known like for the American song tradition, and that's what he's got his Nobel Prize in literature, for creating new expressions of the American song tradition. So it's fitting that he'd make a Christmas album as that's something that's rooted in the same song tradition, especially because Christmas brings people together and stuff like that. It's a very happy thing. Winter Wonderland, of course, is fun. Hark the Herald Angels Sing. For those who think this album is weird, maybe they're right. I don't think that it necessarily makes it super awful, though. There's a happy ring to it that if you can get behind, you'll surely enjoy these tunes. However, I still say this is D tier. I only say that because compared to the rest of his work, first of all, this is all covers and only has a seasonal appeal like Christmas time. Also, compared to the rest of his work, it just pales in comparison. It largely feels like a concept album, kind of like Under the Red Sky, like an experiment, I kind of respect experiments. They just don't always go well. We can always appreciate this was made for charity, but it doesn't mean I'm going to go putting it next to, I don't know, Blood on the Tracks or anything like that. It's just that Dylan has so much content that inevitably this just has to be lower on the list. It doesn't mean that I hate it, though. I'll put this behind Together Through Life, so the 2009 albums are like right next to each other. Fun. Tempest, 2012. So I am so incredibly conflicted on Tempest. Like on one hand, it's got incredible melodies, incredible songwriting, but on the other hand, his voice is at the worst of its career, and that is not an accusation that I make lightly. And some of the songs just go on forever. It shares some songwriting highlights that previous albums have, such as Modern Times or Love and Theft. We've got songs with beautiful melodies like Pain and Blood or Duke Lane Whistle. Pain and Blood has a beautiful melody and beautiful lyrics too, but his voice just ruins it. 2012 was like the peak of Dylan's growl voice, it appears. You can listen to one of these things and know exactly what I mean. If you're not a hardcore Dylan fan, it's really hard to get behind, and even lots of Dylan fans hate this. There's no defending that aspect of this album, even though I like it still. That's just because I'm crazy. Singing against the grain of his voice, if that's what you can call it, even more than before. Now we all know Dylan wasn't blessed by the vocal gods, vocal cords. But he uses it to his advantage to mold his voice to something that fits his music and presents different styles, emotions, and ideas. So why does he deliberately ruin these songs seemingly? One answer you could say is age. That's not clearly the answer, though, because in 2020, 8 years later, he sounds beautiful in Rough and Rowdy ways, and he arguably sounds better in the Outlaw Tour now. Not arguably, he does sound better. So I have to agree that it was a deliberate choice to sing with this growl in Tempest. Like the song Pain and Blood, it's so hard to listen to, but it's such a good melody, There are a couple songs that are easier to get behind. His voice sounds tolerable in Scarlet Town and the song Soon After Midnight, but in other songs like Early Roman Kings or Narrow Way, it it's like so bad. But they're the good songs, which is why I'm conflicted. I enjoy it. That's because I'm accustomed to this acquired taste, but that doesn't mean that everyone is accustomed to that. Like Scarlet Town is a great song. Narrow Ways got that guitar riff that won't stop going and repeating for like 7 minutes, like I feel like he's trying to create Modern Times or Love and Theft again, like so hard, and recreate that success, but 10 years later he just can't do it. He's like straining to reach it. Keep in mind here, Bob Dylan is 71 years old in 2012 when this came out, so it's still pretty impressive for someone that age. Now, if you can get behind the voice and appreciate the songwriting and the lyrics, then there's another major hurdle. We've got song runtime average of nearly 7 minutes. Some of these songs deserve their length, but some, especially the last 3 songs, definitely do not, and I cannot get behind them as much as I have tried. Songs like Tin Angel, which is 9 minutes long, and Roll on John, and the song Tempest, which itself is nearly 14 minutes, but I feel like it just doesn't deserve to be. If a song's going to be that long, which I think some songs do deserve to be that long, for example, Scarlet Town, for instance, 7 minutes, that deserves to be that long, so I'm not just saying it to say it, but it's gotta deserve it. Like those last 3 songs, maybe I just need to listen to them more, but after you're listening to all this music, it just feels like, oh, this is 14 minutes. Like it's terrible. Overall, Tempest is C tier for me, as I enjoyed the songwriting, but like I've repeated continuously, I share this sentiment that many share, that his voice ruins some of the tracks. It's also a commitment to listen to because of the length, and that makes me revisit it less, which is never a good thing. I'll put it like after Infidels, I'd say. Okay, we're going to be covering 3 albums at once, not just because this is my 4th consecutive night of recording this video, but because they're all in the same vein of music, and all of them I share similar sentiments about. So in 2015, Bob Dylan released a covers album called Shadows in the Night, full of Frank Sinatra covers and other similar era style music, and then he did it again, when he's not Nat King Cole, and yet his aged voice does fit some of the music, just not all of it, I'd say. Here he begins actually amending the growl voice from Tempest, and here it actually sounds better, his voice. Now, I'll be honest, in this trilogy of Sinatra albums, I think the official title is like the Great American Songbook Trilogy. I don't particularly enjoy any of them, though. I've had to have these albums to eventually soothe his voice to eventually then release 2020's Rough and Rowdy Ways, then I say it's 100% worth it just so I can have Rough and Rowdy Ways. But the process, the journey there, I don't know if I can get behind. But at the same time, let him do what he wants to do. He's set in his 70s. Now, Shadows of the Night is the first cover album. I had to re-listen to some of these tracks before this, and it's pretty peaceful and I suppose enjoyable. I just feel a little bit biased because maybe some of these songs are too slow, and I'm also in favor of upbeat music. Also under the impression that each of these albums just gets worse as they go along. I will rank them accordingly. I just think that from 2015 to 2017, while it's cool that this man in his 70s is releasing music, the idea of covering Frank Sinatra style songs became really redundant if he kept doing it over and over again repetitively. Unless you're a person that really enjoys this old music being covered, but I feel like I would rather just listen to the old music itself from the 30s and 40s and 50s than listen to this. I understand maybe it's like a tribute thing for Bob Dylan because he's like, these people have influenced him. He's paying homage. It's just that my enjoyment of it is a little bit disinterested, to be honest. Fallen Angels from 2016 is just boring to me. I don't know how else to explain it. I suppose there's a few enjoyable tracks on it, but in good spirit, I don't have that high opinion of it. There are individual tracks that I somehow enjoy, but listening to the album start to finish is not a good experience for me unless I'm intentionally zoning out and not listening to it. Triplicate from 2017 is a 3-disc cover album that's 90 minutes long. This has to be also bottom of the barrel next level for me. There's like 2 to 3 upbeat songs that I like Braggin', or one of the ones at the beginning, I don't know. But I'm not saying all songs need to be upbeat for me to like them, but just repeating slow song after slow song with the same dreary atmosphere proves to me to be pretty not enjoyable. There's no reason for Triplicate to be 90 minutes. That's just excessive. One thing I do like is that we get to see the evolution of his old age voice improving, like he's kind of reteaching himself. It's cool to watch, see the evolution. On further re-examination of the songs in each album, I feel like I like Fallen Angels the best, which is the second album in the series. It's not long like Triplicate, and the song choice is a little bit more enjoyable for me than Shadows in the Night, which the production seems very swampy in. I'll put Fallen Angels just behind Empire Burlesque and Shadows in the Night behind that in D tier. I don't have really that high opinion of them, and I don't plan on revisiting them. Triplicate, I feel like I especially need to put low, but it's not like worse than some of these F tier ones, so I'll put it in the middle of F. I don't see myself re-listening to that again either, in the full honesty, especially that in like full entirety. Maybe I'll listen to like a couple songs that I like, but I don't know if it's gonna happen. So I'm even behind Knocked Out Loaded, so it'd be like the second worst Dylan album. Yeah. Now in 2020, Bob Dylan released Rough and Rowdy Ways. I think it was predated by Murder Most Foul, which he like released in the middle, like on Twitter or Facebook or somewhere. He's like, oh my god, we're gonna release our first original music in 8 years since Tempest, and everyone's going crazy on social media. And then like a little after that, we get this 10-track album of a new original material. Now, I don't know how he recorded this because Bob Dylan was on the tour constantly. So I think it was like in between concerts and stuff. He just filmed this and recorded it with all his bandmates and everything. This song has some this album has some beautiful music. I Contain Multitudes. I think some of them are like slightly more like somber or like slow, but they're not even slow in a bad way because they're just emotional. And I think a lot of people at this age, when he's like I think he recorded this one when he was like 79 or 80, they're gonna be reflecting on their life naturally. So I wouldn't say this is like a mortality death album, gonna die album, but there's no it's inevitable that he's going to be thinking about death. He's going to be thinking about looking back on his life. So I feel like this blends a lot of like a lot of different things from his whole entire career into this one album, and it comes out so well. For example, My Own Version of You, I love that song. It's supposed to be like a metaphor for the songwriting process, but it's like Frankenstein. It feels like a Halloween song because he's like Frankensteining a song to life, basically, like electrifying it to life, getting all these different pieces from everywhere and combining it into creating a song. And it's just the one thing that I do have an issue with, and other people have said this, but there's a lot of like allusions, like references to other like things in pop culture or just everywhere around, and sometimes it works, but sometimes it just comes off corny, like him talking about The Godfather or Al Pacino, Marlon Brando, and in My Own Version of You. Like I'm like listening to that song, I'm grooving, and then I hear that line, I'm like, okay, like it's just funny, like it kind of ruins the mood, like especially when he's trying to be like serious and I Contain Multitudes. Why is that in here? Like I understand it rhymes, but like, I feel like you should have a better reason to like put it in there. And there's he has Goodbye Jimmy Reed, which is I would say closest to like some of the rock songs from like modern times or so like that, except it's like probably like how many years later? I can't count, from 2006 to 2020, but there's 14. I can count, guys. But yeah, Black Rider has a very funny line in there that shouldn't be in there, that he cheekily put in there, that I'm not going to say aloud because it's very inappropriate. False Prophet is also kind of like Goodbye Jimmy Reed because it's kind of a rock song, where the other ones are like kind of hard to place in terms of genre. Like I don't know what genre I would call this, like looking back at your life, I don't know. Key West, see, everyone loves Key West, and not saying I don't like Key West, but I never like got into Key West. I'm not talking about the place, I'm talking about the song, which isn't he's talking about the place in the song. But I never really got into it. To me, I always like the first half of the album better than like the last half. And also, we gotta talk about Murder Most Foul. So Murder Most Foul is a 16-minute song about the death of JFK, and that one is just like, I don't really listen to it. Like when I listen to this album, I don't listen to that one, even though it's at the end of the album, because like I think I listened to it like a couple times in full, but like I can't get behind it. Like, and I understand that it's in there because it's something that was important to him and influenced him when he was like growing up in the Greenwich Village folk scene. It impacted a lot of people, and I understand why he's looking back on it, but just having the 16-minute song about it at the end of this kind of weighs it down. And I think there's a whole debate online right now about like, is it really part of Rough and Rowdy Ways? Yes, it's part of the album, in my opinion, but like, I wouldn't say call it a bonus track either. It's just kind of there, and that does kind of detract some points on the album for me. I feel like some of his singing is beautiful. Like, for example, on I Made My Mind Up to Give Myself to You, that is just like a heavenly song. It's just like, it's like a wedding song basically, because he's devoting his love to someone, or that's what it feels like from what I can gather from the lyrics. But it's just like, it's so, like, for an 80-year-old, it's heavenly, it's beautiful, and this is like probably like one of the most unanimous like people in terms of reviews and critics. This is like, he's getting the best reviews of his career here, and he's like 80. He's 84 now, but here he was like 80, or when he made it, he was 79. Like, I contain multitudes. It's just like the encompassing, like, this is everything that I'm made of, everything that I've gone through, everything that makes me who I am. And he's just looking back on it. And I love the album cover too, the picture of the people dancing. I think it was kind of excessive, maybe, that he went on this tour of him singing the same songs, and people are like, oh, I don't like this song, play it like a Rolling Stone. But then again, they've always been doing that like his entire career, so I don't really expect anything different. But I love Rough and Rowdy Ways. It's just, I don't really listen to it from like album start to finish a lot. I normally just like pick up the songs that I want. I need to listen to it more like from start to finish. But like, also, there hasn't been enough time. This album's been out for like 5 years. I think it just got the 5-year anniversary like a couple days ago or something. I saw on Instagram. I feel like there hasn't been enough time for us to process these albums, this album, because like not enough time has passed. But the fact that he's making and producing this music as such an old person, I don't mean to make it sound like that, but an old person, it's just impressive, really. And I have nothing but good things to say about this album, really. I would put this A tier. I would say, put it right behind Modern Times, a bit better than Freewheeling. It's really good. The only thing is Murder Most Foul kind of drags on it, but if you ignore that and don't listen to it like I do when I listen to it, then it's phenomenal, and you gotta listen to this. Shadow Kingdom was part of this. I don't know, I didn't do my research. I just see it as a compilation of like songs from the 60s that he started singing again, but in like his new style of Rough and Rowdy Ways. Just kind of like, even though for some reason he didn't use the musicians from Rough and Rowdy Ways for this. I think he used different musicians, like musicians that just came in, which is a bit odd. But basically, it's just a compilation of him, Old Man Dylan, singing songs from the 60s and 70s. Some of his, was there some from the 70s? I think Forever Young. Maybe the Wicked Messenger is John Wesley Harding. I'm looking at the track list. But yeah, most of them from the 60s. But it's some of his earlier music, and you get to see a new taste, new spin on it, and it's very, very enjoyable. Like I was saying, I think this is part of like some movie or TV thing that he did. Like I said, I didn't do my research. I just listened to the songs, and I know that the songs are enjoyable, but I know it wasn't like a conventional thing. I think it was like some sort of like broadcast or something that he was creating. But like, he does Watching the River Flow, Tombstone Blues, Queen Jane, When I Paint My Masterpiece, and all these songs are just so, they I feel like refreshed under this different light. And another thing is that this album actually isn't on the tier list maker that I selected, and I actually haven't placed it because I didn't think ahead. So I have to place it. I'm going to place it not before, but as, hold on, I'm going to place it as we're looking at it. So I'm just going to put a placeholder in here for a second to like edit in a picture of Shadow Kingdom. But overall, this is just like a compilation album, and even though it's not new original content, I feel happy that he's like releasing anything at all, because it shows he's alive and abundant, and he's being productive and stuff like that. I would put this at the end of B tier, right behind No Mercy. That sounds about right. Okay. So we made it to the end of the Bob Dylan tier list. So in first place, we got Blood on the Tracks, then Blonde on the Blonde, and then actually I'm not gonna read all that. You can like count it yourself. But like, yeah, this has been a journey. Right? A journey of many years of listening, many new discoveries, many judgment calls of which is better and better. I know a lot of the stuff in B tier, I feel like I could just like switch around and it would still be the same. That's probably the tier that I feel the most conflicted on, of whether I put the right placement. Everything else I feel pretty solid on what I chose to place it in, but B tier, I feel, especially the middle of B tier, I feel like those could be like, they're on the same level kind of, and I just sorted them around, like Desire, Street Legal, Basement Tapes, New Morning, Shadow Love. That's what I'm talking about. But the rest of it, yeah. I know everyone has their own opinions on what his discography should be, in terms of the best and worst. A lot of people are like, only the Electric Trilogy is the best, but you really have to delve into all of his music, I feel like, and he has so many different eras. Like, saying that you like Bob Dylan is like saying you like 10 different artists, because like, look at what I just said. So much to get from his music, and you can't just listen to one album or one era and be like, I'm done, that's Bob Dylan and that's what I think of him, because I've learned so much from going through this, and Bob Dylan has helped me so much. I'm going to keep talking about him on this channel because I'm obsessed, but I would say, yeah, this is my Bob Dylan tier list. Let me know what other artists I should cover. Actually, that's a large commitment to listen to that amount of music. I'll probably decide that on my own, but yeah, that goes for now. Make sure to subscribe this video, share it, subscribe to my channel, sorry. Share the video, like it, do whatever you want, and comment below what you thought, what your opinions are. Of course, this is only my opinion, so whatever you think, you just add below, and comment like what you thought, what your ranking is. I'll be love to hear. I'll respond down below. Okay. Thank you for watching so much. If you made it to the end of the video, like, I'm sure most of you probably haven't, you just skipped around, but just like, thank you so much for watching. It means the world. All right, goodbye.